When your home state makes national news, you hope it's for things like a Super Bowl championship, or because The Bachelor has a romantic hometown date that involves cheese curds, not for being a total clusterfuck during a global pandemic.
Has called for Wisconsin to delay its primary.
Wisconsin has decided that they will move forward with their primary election.
Yep. Despite the Surgeon General asking people to stay home yesterday, Wisconsin will be having in-person voting tomorrow. In Wisconsin's defense, tomorrow's election is not just a presidential primary. Beyond Bernie and Biden, there are almost 4,000 local seats up for grabs, a statewide referendum that amends the Constitution, and a really partisan state Supreme Court race. And to be fair, Wisconsin has done their best to adapt quickly. Over 1.2 million absentee ballots have been requested and sent out. TBD on how many of those absentee ballots will be returned and counted on time, let alone be valid. See, in Wisconsin, you need a witness to sign your ballot, which is difficult when you're self-isolating. In fact, Milwaukee has already reported almost 500 ballots that won't be counted because they're missing a signature. And Wisconsin has pretty strict voter ID laws. In Madison, hundreds of absentee requests can't be processed because instead of sending a picture of their ID, seniors were sending selfies, which is adorable, but not acceptable. Not shockingly, there's also not enough poll workers. More than 100 cities have 0 poll workers for tomorrow. Milwaukee will have just 5 polling locations, which means they could have up to 10,000 people show up at each site. Oh, did I mention that Milwaukee is the epicenter of COVID-19 in Wisconsin? But throughout this whole thing, the governor and lawmakers have stuck to the state motto a little too literally and keep saying, forward. And here is my best attempt at the timeline of the absolute confusion that has been unfolding up until the very last minute. I literally don't even know if this is going to be accurate by the time I post it. But here we go. On March 27th, the Democratic governor did propose having every registered voter sent an absentee ballot. But Republicans who hold the state legislature called it a joke, and even the Election Commission said, we don't have enough ballots to do that. On Wednesday, April 1st, a federal judge heard arguments for loosening absentee ballot restrictions over a 4-hour video conference. By the end, the judge basically said his hands were tied, but did take the opportunity to say that if anyone gets COVID-19 while voting, their condition will be on the hands of the legislature and the governor. Thursday, April 2nd, that same judge rules that voters can have one more day to request their absentee ballot, that they don't need a witness signature, and that the absentee ballots will be accepted up until April 13th. The GOP immediately appeals that decision. The next day, the governor finally calls to stop nearly all in-person voting, send everyone an absentee ballot, and give them until May 19th to return it, marking the first time he has called for the date of the election to be extended. The Republicans take this about as seriously as my older brother took his high school curfew and spend literally 17 seconds Saturday considering the governor's request. Remember how the GOP appealed the decision from the day before? Well, they get the witness signature ruling reversed, but the appeals court held up the decision about the ballots not needing to be back until April 13th. But just like the Goonies, the Wisconsin GOP never says die, and files for an emergency appeal to the US Supreme Court. And guess which justice oversees emergency appeals from Wisconsin? This guy.
Drank beer, we like beer.
So now, the day before the election, we are waiting to hear from Brett Kavanaugh on whether all ballots have to be back by tomorrow or by April 13th. And the only thing stopping in-person voting is the governor invoking emergency powers. Whether or not you're in Wisconsin, pay attention to what your state is doing, because some version of this disarray could still be our reality come November. Urging your state to get their act together and figure out how they'll do democracy if we can't be with more than 5 people total is just as important as you staying home and flattening the curve right now.